You ready? Staff is ready? Okay. Today is January 12th, 2026. It's 4:00 p.m. This is the Beautification and Public Art Commission meeting. So just start with you, roll call following this to order. So Commissioner Travelby, are you online? Okay. Commissioner Cruz?
Present.
Commissioner Elman Heath? Present. Commissioner Rulon?
Present.
Oh, Vice Chair Rulon.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Rulon, present. My apologies. I will get that correct today. Commissioner Curley, present. Commissioner McGrath.
Present.
And myself, I'm board chair. I am present. So item D, upcoming events. Please look at flagstaff365.com. Upcoming events in music, culture, and sciences. And item E, public participation. Do we have any public participation today?
No, I did not get any requests by 3 p.m. today.
Okay, thank you. There is no public participation. And item F, approval of the December minutes. Did everyone have a chance to look at those? And does anyone want to make a motion to approve? So moved. And do we have a second?
Second.
Awesome. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And anyone against? Okay, motion carries. Then item G, first, staff is requesting the action items be taken ahead of the discussion items. That's no problem. Item 2, it looks like the Economic Vitality Director has mentioned that the airport has ads now.
I think Heidi's on.
Oh, okay.
So Heidi, announcement number 2 is relating to the advertising at the airport that's now up and running again. And if anyone's interested, they can, in placing a digital or static display, they can reach out to Claire Harper. Is there anything that you wanted to add to that?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Jana. Yes, we will probably be in full swing with airport advertising opportunities starting in April. Leading up to that time, we have to get through looking or revising our media kit and some updating of pictures and things like that. But there will be what we call a TV display and static wall display opportunities. And just for you to understand the difference, TV display would be an opportunity for somebody that's probably like an event planner, a festival or something where it isn't something that's going to be up for a very, very long time, but they want to get the word out. And then static display would be something where someone would want to have it up for at least a year. And then we can talk to them about how they get produced and things like that. So thank you for acknowledging that piece, but I just thought the more people know that we have that opportunity again at the airport, the better. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Heidi. Item 3, budget dates.
Yes, just wanted to let you know, sometimes I present these in slightly different months each year for those of you who are veterans. But I just wanted you to know that we will look at the capital projects at the February BPAC meeting. I have submitted FY27 requests for every single project so that you prioritize for FY27. So that much I can tell you now, but I'll go over it in a little bit more detail. Then in March, we'll go over operating requests in the operating budget. And operating budget includes a lot of different things that aren't strictly what you might think of. Our PIA grants are there, and the Creative Flagstaff grants are also in operating. And then I'll ask for your approval of the FY27 budget 5-year plan in April. And so therefore I'll be ready for council with your recommendations should you choose to give it, so that they can have it for their June meeting when they pass the budget. So we're on track.
Great, thank you. And then item 4, Commissioner Curley has show and tell about
Show and
BIA grant mural.
Yeah, I was speaking to the woman whose husband owns Anderson Tire, where this mural is being placed. And she was sharing some photos and just reactions from the community as the mural's going up. Lots of people waving and honking, excited, stopping, talking to the artist. The employees are also commenting about pride of working in that location and that happening for them. So it was just exciting to hear, and they continue to evolve the mural. Added some distinctions for the solstice. And so just kind of neat to see it coming together. And she was very excited and sharing photos and everything. So I just thought the group would want to know that it's being very well received in the community. And if anyone's curious, there was a really nice write-up as well. And it does mention the BIA grants.
Awesome. It's great. It's always really nice to see acknowledgement of that stuff in the public. So it's cool. Very cool. Anything else? Nope. Okay. And then we will go to item I, skipping item H. So action items, we've got some BIA grant application presentation.
Yeah, so we have Diana here, you can come forward, presenter. Neat. And Lisa should have a clicker, or
I forgot the clicker. If you could just give me one moment.
Okay. All right. So, once we come back to the clicker, I'll signal for you to start, and you'll have 5 minutes. And then when that 5 minutes is up, I'm gonna have to interrupt you. And our commission can vote to extend that time if they want to hear the end of your presentation, but after that, it'll be 3 minutes of Q&A. Okay, thank you. I have my timer.
And so while we're waiting for the clicker, I'll also, take this opportunity to introduce Rose Toki. Yes, our administrator of Indigenous Affairs, and I believe she's here. Are you here in support of this BIA grant? Yes.
Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity. I'm Diana Calandras. I'm the director of this Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, or CJCC. And I'm really excited today to share with you this proposal that uses artwork to create a more welcoming and culturally responsive environment within the Superior Court. And please note that the beautiful images that are part of this presentation are actually examples of the art we would be looking at to purchase. So court spaces are often very unfamiliar and really intimidating. Most people come to court at a time that's very stressful. It's not a very positive experience. And this increases anxiety and can make it harder to understand what is happening in the court process. This holds especially true for people from communities whose cultures, identities, and lived experience are not reflected in the space. Research shows that simple design choices like including natural light or artwork or natural elements can create a calming environment and inspired by nature, and that can make a real difference. This project aims to transition the Superior Court to a space where all community members will feel respected and welcomed. It will also reflect this community's deep commitment to the environment and stewardship of the natural world. The artwork will feature Coconino County-based images, all taken in the field, that highlight lands, parks, and other culturally significant areas. Additionally, the collection offers an educational opportunity, especially for young people and visitors, encouraging mindfulness, time in nature, and a healthy outdoor lifestyle. The project goals are pretty simple. We want to create a culturally responsive and inclusive space. We want to feature landscapes and natural elements. And we want to foster a welcoming and respectful experience for everyone. Marcus Rinkensmeyer is a professional Arizona-based artist and a former court administrator. He has extensive experience in courthouse programming, design, and renovations. His photography highlights Flagstaff and the diverse landscapes of Coconino County, capturing sacred mountains, rivers, canyons, and flora that hold deep cultural and environmental significance. Marcus is deeply committed to community-based and user-focused projects like this one, and he has given me permission to feature his art as part of this presentation. The photographs would be displayed in highly visible areas of the Superior Court, including main corridors and waiting spaces, where they can be seen by defendants, plaintiffs, jurors, attorneys, victims, and members of the public. This project is part of a broader effort led by the CJCC and the Indigenous Initiatives Committee to reduce the anxiety and intimidation often associated with court appearances. By showcasing meaningful natural elements in local landscapes, the initiative promotes dignity, fosters a sense of belonging for historically marginalized populations, and strengthens trust and connection between the community and the justice system. The purchase of the digital images will allow for unlimited use of this image for web design, promotional materials, or etc. The Coconino County Facilities Department has agreed that installation will be an in-kind contribution. An inventory of this artwork is going to be maintained by the CJCC and the Facilities Department. To ensure the artwork remains in publicly accessible spaces, there's consideration for entering into an MOU between the county and the court to ensure public accessibility and ongoing placement. And there will be lobby signage that indicates public artwork is available for viewing, identify the artwork locations, and acknowledge the support from the City of Flagstaff's Beautification and Action Grant. In closing, the project is about far more than artwork on the walls. It is a unique initiative that honors the humanity of every person entering the Superior Court, often during some of the most challenging moments of their lives. The artwork is intended to offer moments of calm, reflection, and beauty, helping individuals feel steadier and more supported during their experience. This initiative also aligns directly with the work of the CJCC to address disparities within the criminal justice system. For individuals from historically marginalized communities who are disproportionately impacted by court involvement, the physical environment of the courthouse can influence perceptions of fairness, safety, and belonging. Creating a more welcoming and human-centered space is one small but intentional step towards reducing the harms caused by system involvement and reinforcing the CJCC's commitment to equity, dignity, and procedural justice. Everyone who comes to the court deserves to be met with dignity and respect. This project is still more about art. It is about how we design public spaces to reflect dignity, inclusion, and respect for all who move through them, especially in moments of vulnerability.
Q&A.
Yeah, if anybody have any questions? I assume we've covered all the public accessibility questions.
Yes, that's gone through to legal.
Great, thank you.
Yes, and it has been deemed publicly accessible.
Yes. Yeah, I figured as much, but just in case we close the building.
Yes.
That's fantastic. I think it's an awesome idea. So those are two bleak walls.
I was called for grand jury selection on Thursday, and one of my first impressions was, is it definitely a space that calls for and humanity.
And we've had really lovely responses. The artwork on the outside of the municipal court. And, you know, the idea that you just sometimes need a couple minutes of peace.
Yes.
I think that that's fantastic.
I guess I do have a question as I sit here and think. Did I interrupt somebody? Do you have
Oh,
something
no,
to say?
there was a tie, so. go ahead.
Okay. So the walls were bleak and the image of the trees was lovely. So is that, I'm thinking of, you know, murals, I'm thinking of paint on the walls, I'm thinking of like, there's a lot that you can do in this space, it seems like to me. And so is the decision to do the prints and that's where you've landed, or will there also be other things to make it more?
Yes.
I'm just thinking
Less
about
bleak.
something less bleak, you know.
Yes, thank you so much. Absolutely. This is one piece that we're looking at. We actually, the CJCC was awarded a portion of the sustainability grant also. So we're commissioning a specific type of original art for that space.
Okay.
This is going to fill some of that, but not all of it. So we would be looking for additional opportunities for other types of art and everything to supply that as well. So, thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, great.
Any other questions?
Can I? I'm sorry, to take an opportunity, this is Judge Reed here with us. He's the presiding judge from the Superior Court and the chair of the CJCC. So he and I have been in coordination about this project, of course, so.
Welcome, Judge. Thank you for joining us.
Rose is the lead of this committee.
Great. So are we voting on these now or are
Yes,
we?
you can.
Okay, would anybody like to make a motion to approve this project?
So moved.
Great, I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone against? Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
We will be participating in First Friday Art Walk, so there's a possibility that we have all of our artwork up and we can welcome the community for kind of a grand opening in First Friday.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Please let us
Yes,
know.
and keep us
We'll get the
posted.
word out.
Absolutely.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
And just so the commission knows, Commissioner Travel P has joined us online.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. We need to count the voter, did we?
Audra, did you, I know she missed the presentation. Did you vote in favor on the last? motion?
Wait, was she here for the presentation? She has to be here for the
Okay,
presentation.
then that doesn't count. Okay, good. I didn't want to have to redo it. So that's great. Okay, action item 2, beautification and action grant application update.
Oh, that's you. Come on up. Hello. Do I go here?
Yes.
Okay, you're the presenter. Hello, everybody. Be back.
Say welcome back.
Yeah, how y'all doing?
Happy New Year.
You good? Yeah, right? Yeah. Happy New Year too. I just, sorry, my glasses have paint all over them.
I am shocked.
I know, right? I know, I cleaned up my hands pretty good. There's paint everywhere. I had to get here. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I am, back to try to, I had to move my site for my mural location. This was the old site, as we know, the Crown. And I just heard last week, the director of shelter services, Ross Schaefer, she called me last week and said, bad news. The contractor just found out that there's internal water damage to that wall. And that they're most likely gonna have to just demolish the entire wall. At first, I said, that's fine, I'll paint on a new wall. And she said, well, they're not looking at getting it rebuilt for at least another year. And so we did discuss maybe doing a mural at the Lantern location of the brand new shelter. And after talking to the contractor there, they said maybe those walls will be ready in 6 months soonest. And so she did say, and her director, Stefan, who is, he's in charge of all the renovations. And they did say that the wall at the current shelter on Huntington is ready to be painted. Now, of course, I'll have to prime it and everything, but I already bought all the supplies. I actually bought all the supplies for the Crown location, called them and said, I'm ready to go paint on a warm day. And then they called me literally the next day and said, no, the wall's being torn down. So I do have all the supplies. The design, actually, I can make the design more vertical on this wall, which I do like. I prefer that. And I know there was a concern about it being visually obstructed from cars and vans that of course park there. And so I checked in on renting a scissor lift, and I'd be just willing to do that on my own budget, so that it can be above car level, and I can raise it that way. Yeah, and I could bring it up to like top of the window even. What about the texture of the wall?
It's terrible.
It's like the worst
Yeah.
texture ever. But we can do it. Like I can do it. Like I'm not worried about it. Like it'll be challenging, but I've painted on a lot of weird texture before. And I get all my supplies in at a paint store and down in Tempe. And I have some really good quality primer for all that surface there already. So we'll prep it good, and then I'll seal it really good, of course.
Anything else? Any questions?
Do I have anything else? Oh yeah, that was the Google Maps view of it. And it can be, Ross, the director was saying that, that's Huntington. It's east facing, and she did say that, it is visible from even I-40.
Yeah.
And with it being raised higher, you know, when I rent the scissor lift, it'll be really visible. And talk about a bleak wall that needs some warmth for sure. Not just, yeah, right. And it's like, and it's not just for the clients, but the people who work there too.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I have a question because I noticed the, do you prefer having it raised or is it just to meet visibility requirements?
Oh, it really was just to meet visibility requirements.
Okay, because I noticed the texture of the block lower is smoother. And I personally feel like with that scale raising it, I feel comfortable with the visibility of it
I do
being
too.
lower.
Oh,
So
okay.
I would say the
yeah,
whole
without-
wall would be pretty canvas.
incurring that additional cost and dealing with the texture, unless it's important to your artwork or unless the other commissioners feel otherwise.
No,
No.
and in fact, it kind of gives a nicely defined canvas.
Yeah.
Because there's a pretty clear space to work lower. Is that something you would be comfortable with?
I would, let me go backwards. It's hard to see from here, from far away, but where you're talking about where there's that smoother brick, below that is that textured terrible brick again. So it's only a small strip.
Okay.
And I would want to paint above that no matter what, just for design reasons.
What's your preference?
My preference, is actually to go higher because I do think the cars will obstruct it. Because people are allowed, of course, the people who stay there, they're allowed to park their van and cars to stay out in the cars and vans there. So I do believe that parking lot gets pretty full, especially in the summertime.
Okay. Okay, good to know.
Looking at street view, it would only be visible from the freeway if it was up higher.
Mhm.
Like that, there's a block wall that would block all of it. But question is the wall, the original wall that's getting torn down, is it getting rebuilt in a year?
It is.
So no thought to just maintaining that project and
I
just
would-
waiting a year?
I would love to, because I would really love to do that wall. After talking to the director and then Stefan, the guy in charge of the renovations, they actually requested me. They said at best a year that wall would be rebuilt. Because they're having to actually, I guess, tear out all the rooms that are also attached to the walls and everything there. There's just atrocious water damage apparently. And so they're saying at best a year. And both Stefan and Ross requested this wall only because it is the bleakest out of all the shelters out of the three. And so they were like, if you're okay with it, we'd love for you to bring some beautification over here instead.
Okay, that sounds like it's supported by the client pretty strongly.
Yeah, yeah, oh, very much, yeah, yeah, and she emailed a letter asking, like, she actually even offered to come in with me tonight, and I was like, I'll support you anyway.
Well, it seems like we have a vote. Would anybody like to make a motion to approve the new location?
Question.
Great. Second. So many seconds. Great, all in favor? Aye. Commissioner Travelby? Aye.
Aye.
Oh, okay. Anyone against?
Thank you. I can't wait
you.
for some warm days. I'm ready to.
I don't think those are that far off.
No, I don't think so. I just need 50 degrees and up, so I'm good. It's coming.
Great.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Awesome. Then we will move on to each discussion items. Go forward. Item 1, Vice Mayor Sweet, you have a monthly report.
I do. I hope everyone had a good holiday and happy new year. The council meeting on last Tuesday was a good reentry into reality. And one of the items was the advertising for the airport. Heidi covered that, so I won't go over that. We are looking at a lot of codes within the city. And one of them is our International Energy Conservation Code and renewing that and which level do we want to go. So council was presented with 4 options. It's kind of staying where we are all the way to going all electric appliances and heating, cooling in one of the options. And this is for new builds. So we're looking at that. It's pretty exciting. And speed humps, this is one of Mayor Daggett's favorite topics, is slowing traffic down in neighborhoods. And speed humps are kind of more of a long, gradual hump instead of a speed bump. So it really does slow you down, but it's easier on maintenance and vehicles. And I think it's a great idea. Council's very supportive, so look for those coming into your neighborhood. And the care unit update, it is going back out for an RFP. And while they're doing that, they're renegotiating the contract and adding in some new things. We've been asking for 6-month updates. Our next update for the care unit won't be for a year because there will be some changes happening. It's a very successful program and looking to see how we can expand it, how we can financially do it without burnout. So it was a good meeting back, and I'll be sure to update you next month on what we discuss in the next 3 weeks. That's it.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Yep.
And then item H2, artificial intelligence discussions.
Yes, so first of all, thank you for having such a wide-ranging and nuanced discussion in my absence. I've actually listened to that portion 2 times. Because actually, as you kind of started off one direction, but then you kind of, went in different directions. So I was plucking little pieces of fruit throughout the, good 50 minutes that you gave to that conversation, and I really appreciate it. And I also want to thank Ms. Woodall for giving a kind of an introduction. I wanted to, before I kind of go into some points and where they might go, I did want to, first follow up with, the concept that there's going to be like a city-wide policy possibly. And I think some excitement was around the fact that DJ Perry of IT was leading it, and he is indeed leading a group. And I just wanted, one of the things I wanted to follow up with you immediately is the focus of that group is probably not what we're concerned with. The focus of that group, the purpose is to provide direction to staff on where they can use AI and when they can't use AI. So it isn't really geared towards the outside coming in. It's like, obviously maybe let's just say I'm writing a staff review, I shouldn't be using the general ChatGPT to tweak my language because those prompts are saved. This is, personnel stuff. So, it's going to focus on which tools we're allowed to use, a little bit like Commissioner Edelman Heath was saying, her company is deciding, which AI they can use, which will protect their clients' privacy and copyright. And that's what the city policy is here for. And also, if I ask you to think about it, there's probably nobody else who's getting art submissions but us. So a little bit, we're not gonna probably get a citywide policy. And even though that was an absolutely great suggestion. You know? So as I was thinking about this, and I do want you to know, we only, and I think Corey did say, this is a conversation as it relates to public art. Nobody expects you to come up with a policy or ask you to decide on policy right away. But I do think that you guys touched on so many interesting, issues. And so one of the things that, and I did, even though they're, all things meet, they always overlap. But I know Vice Chair Rulon said, yeah, there was two different conversations going on. There was ones about the proposals, the grant proposals, or applying, just the language and using for the applying, and then the art itself, the visual art itself and using AI. And so I think that we were hoping to focus more in on the visual versus the proposal. We're probably not as worried about that. And for all the reasons, especially that Chair McCourt, brought up about how, and actually Commissioner Cruz brought up that we want our proposals to be clear. It makes it really easier on the selection panels. We're probably not gonna put a big thumb on, even consider a big thumb on that. I think it's more focused around some of the points that Commissioner, Travelby came up with, and also Vice Chair Rulon. If we don't get ahead of this, we do have this risk of angering our artist community. And I think that's kind of it's not really the legal issue. It's not really the technical issues. And I really loved some of if we're gonna ask for anything, we need the tool. Again, Commissioner Cruz, to verify it, because if we don't have that, it's opening a door for another big can of worms. I'm not asking for a bigger discussion on the artist community today, but I think that that's going to have to be a focus, because we're going to have to decide a little bit. You're going to have to direct staff. Staff is probably going to come up with any policy, and we're going to probably vet it through our attorney, vet it through city leadership, and then you'll kind of be asked to pass. But how we get there will be probably in stops and starts because it's a big topic. It's changing every day. There are national policies being formed, and we want to access all of that. Those are very good points, because everybody's dealing with this. But we might have things in this community, because it is a small community versus a big city, that, maybe protecting local artists might way bigger with us than it might in New York City, for instance. Might not. I'm not coming to a conclusion. I'm just coming into some of the factors that we might want to discuss. So I do think that to help guide staff or to participate with staff, it would probably be a good idea to make a committee on this. Use one or two of the commissioners. But I do think that this is either going to be, we're just going to put a couple of things out there, and then we're just going to start modifying as we go along, because versus coming, because I think regardless, it's going to change in 2 years, regardless.
Absolutely.
So maybe we're going to call them guidelines instead of policies. But I do want you to know that regardless of whether or not we even put in guidelines, it's going to come up in selection panel discussions. So we don't get out of, if we don't pass a policy or guidelines, it's still going to come up. And then it's going to be on that individual staff member to try to guide that selection panel through a discussion.
Mhm.
And that's gonna also have some ramifications. The selection committees are not public meetings, they're not recorded, but things still do, come up in those, and that could have ramifications. So if we don't do anything, we're still going to face the issue, and we're still gonna have some, so that's what I wanted to kind of, one of my takeaways was that, there was a reluctance to go forward. I felt a little bit, but I was also like, I just kind of wanted you to be aware that, we're gonna have selection panels come up and especially probably the traffic signal cabinets, the 2D digital art, which already, as we know, has software in it that, we've seen it. But we have in our criteria is originality and high aesthetic value, right? They're both in the same criteria. So you can easily see how a member of the public who may be more savvy about reading what an AI produced image looks like might say, and I think that's what happened in Bozeman. People who were kind of eyes were trained, they said it has to be AI. Now, as we know, the artist says no, and again, they probably did. Maybe they didn't have a tool, they had nothing set up. There's a controversy, it's an article in the paper. But we could easily have somebody on the selection panel, who's very savvy, say that's not original. And then, so we haven't said anything and no guidelines, nothing to the selection panel whatsoever, nothing at the call to artists. We're gonna be putting our staff members in a spot to try to handle that, right then and there in a timely manner. So by not doing anything, and that may happen, and, we're gonna have some staff meetings on kind of what to do in those situations. But if we don't go forward with some kind of guidelines, as far as, and maybe we just decide, we just want to handle it through the selection criteria. We don't want to say anything specific about AI. There's many different ways we can go about this. We don't have to say no AI, only UA use AI in this way and not this way. We could handle it differently. We can handle it legally, some of the issues legally, just through copyright. You have to hold, if you use AI, you have to hold the city, harmless, if you violated any copyright. There's, maybe we tweak the criteria so that, either, so that we can just refer selection panels, interpret the criteria the best you can. But I do think that those are the sorts of things that I kind of came away with from your discussion. There's like lots of subtle points. I listened to it twice, I took notes twice, and it's just so I'm gonna even compare my notes so I don't miss anything, because actually I think you guys did, a wonderful job, and I really appreciate all your comments. So that was my spiel. If anybody has any comments back to me, please, or for general discussion on what I've said, would appreciate it. So
I have one question, because I think what it made sense, I read the notes and tuned in, but I missed the actual discussion. So, but Timothy, do you think it'd be helpful to, or not over asking on staff capability to do some kind of questionnaire to our community of grant applicants or something like that? I'd be kind of curious to hear from, if we're focusing on that.
yes, and I know that came up. Should we, go out to the community? And there was like, some reluctance, but I do think that there's a way to craft some questions, and we could go out to a focus group of artists versus going out to like a community
It
survey.
seems like a good opportunity for a partnership with Creative Flagstaff.
Yes, it also does. And this, I would see this AI committee not just being city staff and commissioners. I could even see pulling in Scottsdale or, the Arizona Commission from the Arts. You don't have to limit this, but yes, I think, we do a lot already for the local artist community, I feel, as a personal opinion. We have increased these BIA grants. We have given a lot of extra money to Creative Flagstaff for the project grants, for the Art X grants. We are, I think, protective of, that community very, and so, but also we have welcomed, artists from all over the country and maybe someday all over the world, because that also brings something to your community, so it's always a balance. Everything here is a balance, and always striking the right balance, sometimes, with one project, you may go here and one project you may go there, and then those projects balance out, right? So, but I do think some kind of outreach is going to be necessary because to get some kind of pulse of what the community wants. Because it is, I already know, people who use it as a tool, like just to bounce ideas off of, but it doesn't actually, it isn't the final creation. We know people are using it all sorts of ways. So we might want to ask, artists,
Yes,
ask
I
them,
agree.
how are you using it? Ask them, versus us. So I see that it is really valuable.
I agree and strongly that that's important to find out what people are doing with it. And that I think was one of the points from the discussion last time was that we just have no idea what people are doing with it because people have so many far-ranging uses.
The one thing that I want to say is, like, you used the word original, and I would hate for us to think that something that is where technology is used is not original, right? Because we have, anime movies and
Exactly.
CGI, and so technology is, and so if an artist says that one photo that you showed at the very beginning of that presentation was this giant art piece in a museum, I thought it was lovely, and you said it's AI created. So I would hope that there's enough of an understanding about AI that it's not just pulling an image from Google and saying, Mike drew this, right? Or Mike took this photo. That clearly is a no. But if an artist somehow feeds a recipe into AI and AI spits out something and the artist further tweaks it or does something to it, like, is that a no or is that an okay? Because I think that there's some really smart people who can do some really creative things with technology that, that individual maybe didn't draw or didn't photograph. And so is that skill set, which I think is phenomenal and amazing, is that something that we don't want, right? So I think as this evolves, it has to be, the language should be such that if you don't want any of that, then certainly be clear. And that's, if that's what BPAC wants, that's what BPAC wants, no problem. But I don't want us to be so, I don't know, so set in, if anything, if AI has any aspect of this, then it's a no, or, you know what I mean? I just want to
Right.
understand
Right.
sort of, and appreciate that some of technology is amazingly creative and artistic.
Yes, absolutely.
And to build on that, I think because we do know that people with disabilities tend to rely on technology in ways that able-bodied people don't, it's really important to include the disability community in this conversation.
Sure. There's another community member.
Yes.
Yeah.
I find myself deeply in alignment with Commissioner Cruz on all of this stuff, which is really fun for me.
We talked about it after the last meeting.
Yes.
And it's, I think you have, perhaps because of your university access and your with, I'm just guessing, obviously, but access to so many young people that are interacting with a tool that for them just exists, you know, and so it's an opportunity, and I know in industries like mine, where time is money, it's a tool that we are looking at. And
Right.
we are using it, we are finding ways to make it, you know, a really valuable part of the process. And the things that you can do with it today are not the things that you can do with it you know, we didn't have those capabilities 6 months ago even.
Right.
And so that's definitely where a part of my caution and concern came, was that I just don't have any idea where this is going. I think it's really cool.
We also have peer organizations we can check with. I'm
Yes.
sorry, I keep interrupting you.
Well, no, it's, okay. Well, my concern with it doesn't come with product so much as, and this seems like something that maybe Creative Flagstaff or the committee might do is, it's hard for an individual with this level of technology to really understand some of the nuance of the copyright and their own creative, their intellectual property and how it's getting fed in and used to others.
Mhm.
So that's the end that I have the most caution with, is their own intellectual property and personal integrity, and them having resources to understand implications when they interact with it. Because
Right.
yeah, that I think that
And that very much could be a wonderful class for Creative Flagstaff
Yeah.
to offer.
yeah.
Do we know if AI generated art is copyrightable?
Oh, there's a lot of work on it already. I don't want to quote it because I don't remember the exact details, but there's so much discussion about copyright around AI.
And there are a
I'm sure
lot of,
there is.
so legal, as you know, will want to put a heavy thumb
Yeah,
on that, by nature, they're cautious.
And
by
I'm
nature.
just quoting my presentation that I gave last month. So under current law, content produced entirely by AI immediately enters the public domain, no creator copyright.
gotcha, that's right. I do remember that, yeah. So,
But
For
there
our
are-
previous discussion.
But there are other versions of it too, because it's like what Claire is saying, you know, what about the work that you're feeding into the AI and then is referenced by the AI
Yeah.
as a part of that learning?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and then there's a
Yeah.
lot of back and forth, literally.
And which
Yeah.
some may want to do, you know, I mean, I think there's a lot of people that are interested in
That can be
that,
part of
but-
your creative
Yeah,
process.
yeah, but,
Right.
but just, I'm part of the AI group at my office, and how we can, we have kind of 5 main technical softwares that we use, and it's integrated. This year they've rolled out AI into each software, some more effectively than others. But, the trying to understand, you know, where it's going, and, you know, because this is an example, like, you know, we have 40 years of kind of intellectual property around landscape architecture that we might not necessarily want to share, because that makes us competitive with other, and I know artists put their heart and souls into their work and their professional things. So and I'm in a large company that has the resources to dig into it, but an individual may not be. And so anyways, that's,
No, I think that's, you know, really, you know, it doesn't go towards our guidelines, but I think it's really important as we do value, you know, the artists in our community, and knowing that they need education as much as we do. Because I'm a bit of a Luddite also, as far as using AI. I have used it twice, and that's it. So, I'm not a big user of it.
You might be surprised at how much AI is already integrated into your day-to-day.
You're doing it, you don't even know
Well,
it.
I mean, I know it is in my searches, yes, it actually drives me
There are also
crazy.
guidelines, arts education guidelines with utilizing AI, so we don't have to create this ourselves. When we were having our last discussion, I was playing while we were talking, and there are some really nice guidelines to look at, and some of them speak to the fact of if you use it in creation, right, and ideation,
Yeah.
that's one thing, but when you think about final product, right, maybe that's not the place. So there's actually some interesting guidelines out there in terms of arts education and utilization of AI. So I think that's another thing to consider as we continue down the path.
I'd like to just note that Commissioner Cavalli has a note up on the chat as well. She says, I've been having conversations with both artists and tech folks at AI Hub at NAU. Ask what they think about the issue. While there are many varying thoughts and opinions, one thing that there was consensus on was that the use of AI should be disclosed. Which brings us back to the other conversation, which is like, disclosed to whom?
Right.
You know,
And it could be just to staff.
yeah.
It could be, I did, very much highlight in my first set of notes, all the dangers you guys brought up about disclosure, as far as then people being punished for their disclosure. And I do think that's a real concern with a selection panel.
Mhm.
Maybe there's other ways around that.
I think with an educated selection panel, it would be one thing, but particularly if you've got folks that are really uncomfortable with the idea or new to the idea, you risk a lot of bias, or somebody who's really with the idea and has a lot of bias, which is another possibility.
But to staff, especially with what I'm gonna gather, the attorney's angle about copyright is gonna be, they're gonna probably want that as well.
I love the idea of guidelines,
Yeah.
you know, and I was thinking about it a lot in terms of our selection documents. Not so much for the smaller projects because it's a smaller set of criteria sometimes, but they're similar. But one thing I've consistently run into with the selection committees is that I really do feel like the documents need to be broken out a little bit more. And then some information or some rubrics applied to like what potentially these things are that we're grading. So that from committee member to committee member, we're applying the same standard, because like we have, as an example, we have there's one, and I don't want to misquote it, so it's something to the effect of understanding local cultural considerations or something like that. And people from Flagstaff may understand that there's the potential that that could refer to Indigenous communities, it could refer to Basque history, it could refer to current cultural considerations. There's a pretty broad application. So with the AI consideration, you know, when we talk about originality, you know, maybe we have to break that out a little bit more and have, you know, have a section that says, is there a, you know, did the artist produce the final concept? Does the final concept represent an original idea? You know, or I can't even think what the wording is exactly right now, but a way to parse out, okay, well, maybe they used AI, but is the idea original? Without specifically directing people to judge them based on AI. So
Well,
I
I'm
don't know,
wondering-
there's something there.
Do we run the images now through AI? I mean, you know, we were on the Flower Box, which I love,
Yeah.
over by NPA. And, you know, do we run that through AI and say, hey, was this original? I mean, maybe that was an internet generated photo from the East Coast 10 years ago that an artist said, oh, I'm gonna do, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I think that's one of the issues too, is we have to be able to somehow check it. But we don't do that now. And
Right.
so,
And that might be a pre-check from staff.
Right. And I did take Commissioner Cruz's, your point in the discussion a couple of times that you made, that, you know, in the result is ultimately what the selection panel is obviously, you know, they love it, they don't love it, you know, we can put whatever, you know, criteria you want, they're going to, you know, twist it into the results.
Yes.
And maybe that's, you know, that's of ultimate importance. You know, is a community happy with the resulting art that they get? You know, we don't ever want to make the criteria also so specific that it ends up adding up to something that they're not like really happy with. Because ultimately, you know, art does have this, that's why it's hard to write criteria for art. Very different, right? Because it has this kind of borderless, free flowing feel to it. That people know it, articulating it, putting it in words, putting it in scores. We all have to do it, but there's still, sometimes that's why the criteria are a little open-ended. To allow for the individual interpretation.
I agree that it needs to be a lot of open-ended criteria. I think that there are some criteria that we have though that are really, really specific, like will it hold up to a desert environment that also has snow?
Right. That's usually given
And-
like 5 points instead of
Right,
50 points.
but it's within a larger group and we can have that same thing where it's like,
Right.
you know, there's a technical question. It's not necessarily about, you know, art or do you respond to it or does it speak to your heart? But, you know, here's a technical question that specifically relates to AI or to how the image was produced or whatever we decide the criteria is. I don't want to get too specific, but then, you know, just like we have a question that says, does it seem like this person has worked with large government entities and engineers in the past? That's a, you know, that's an important question. I think it's worth like, you know, a fairly significant number of points within the guidelines. And there's maybe something that could be similar.
Right. Yeah, that's, you know, I think we have something like that when it's a big construction project versus
Yeah.
the traffic. safety
And that's why I'm
project.
referring
Right.
to those larger projects.
Yes, yes.
Have you looked at any of our peer organizations to see what they're doing?
Yeah.
Okay, because that would be good too, because if we create language, then we have to be able to, again, verify and someone's gonna say, no, that's not true. I mean, you know, we open ourselves up to issues. And then the other thing is what are we gonna do if someone says, yes, I used AI, but it was my ideas, it created this image and the image in and of itself doesn't exist elsewhere because I fed the instructions and it you know what I mean? It just, it's super.
I created a silly image in AI the other day and I asked it to make an image that represented the east side that had an ice cream truck, a raft in a flood, some ponderosa pines, and a squirrel driving the ice cream truck on the raft.
That's original art,
And
I
it
think.
made exactly that.
It was cute as a button. Too.
So should we put
So,
Corey's
it is-
skateboarding crocodile on a?
Yeah. Or putting artwork there.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can do those things.
Yeah.
And no, I would never say that I drew or made this ice cream truck driving squirrel.
We have that. I mean, the signal cabinets are in a way digital productions, regardless. I
Yeah.
mean, even if somebody paints something, they're gonna be having to take a picture of that, a high resolution picture to, you know, put it on, and then they may go in and they may, you know, adjust the colors. We all know that those projects are inherently digital and therefore inherently going to be manipulated. So that might be different than, say, a different kind of art, you know, project. And so that's why we might have to have guidelines that are different for our different projects. And so we're gonna have to consider that. So I'm gonna dare to ask, if we were to form a committee, who would be interested to sit on it? Because it's gonna take time commitment. Yeah.
So while folks are considering that and thinking of their excuses why they can't do it, I'll say, so last month, it was a really good introductory overview, and I only used AI like for research and stuff, like on papers, like a fancy, thirsty Google search, right? And from the meeting, my favorite use is Mike using it so his emails are less scary to his students. That's my favorite.
Yes. Yeah.
But as fate would have it, I had a chance to like really dive into some AI use over the break to help me like research a large purchase. And it occurred to me that and just while we're sitting here, when we talked about the selection panel for Schweitzer, the 50, and I said, I'll do another one without 50 people. It occurred to me, like, I could take those PDFs you sent me, put them in there, put the search criteria and say, give me the best ones for Flagstaff that meet this criteria and fit the community character. And it would rank all 50 in 3 seconds. And that hadn't occurred to me until like we were sitting here right now. And I absolutely would do it and without question. And then I don't think any of us probably would find that super helpful because we're here to actually like think about things. But then if we start talking more about criteria, like the have you demonstrated experience working with communities and stakeholders or whatever that question is, we had 450 pages of resumes for Schweitzer Canyon. And
That was a long one.
I know, but like, do you think Carl and I read every word of the 450 pages? I'm not gonna put, maybe we didn't, right? You could put that in there. And then you could say, cause like a lot of people just repeated it, like the buzzwords, right? Like they're doing a resume and you gotta have these buzzwords in there. Like you could say, who's actually done it and who do you think is faking it? And it would give you people it thinks is faking it. And then like, you're like, well, should I give those people 0 points? And like, I hadn't done any of this because I only learned this like a week or two ago, but like, it absolutely would do that.
My selection panelists, this is a
With
new one.
no,
No,
like,
it
it would
is.
take no
It's
time at
absolutely
all. And it would
something to
give
think about.
you 50 people. And like, are there ways where it could be useful? Like, I don't know. Like, and at what point, I guess that's the problem with AI, at what point does useful get to creepy?
I feed
Right,
public
and weird.
I feed public RFQs into AI in order to have it dig out key points for me. Because I don't, I may have read it twice, but I don't remember what's on page 256. And I'm trying to very quickly respond to something and I'm like, okay, so what does this RFQ say about grant money use? And so then, you're not creating anything based on it, you're not doing anything based on it, but it's basically becomes a personal assistant that reminds you, so instead of using Command F, it's its own command F. And it goes in and it says, well, on this page it says this, and on this page it says this, and on this page it says this. And so then you can say, okay, well, now I need to think about these things. And it's a super helpful research tool.
I know, but look at these 500 slides and tell me which will last longest in a high desert environment with winter. And
So
it'll give you answers.
I just asked ChatGPT, can you draft a public art AI policy for the city of Flagstaff beautification action grant application? And it did an application with 8 points.
Yeah.
Policy review and evolution, accountability and review, disclosure and documentation, cultural and indigenous considerations, prohibited or restricted uses of AI. I'll send it to you.
Okay.
AI can do, and so I think.
Yeah, regulate yourself. Nope, can't do that.
Sorry, Dave.
And it seems like Mr. McIntyre's joined the table.
Yes.
I hope you don't mind. This was a fascinating conversation and I found myself wanting to. Because there are a couple places where, when you are using it to select like which of these is most likely to hold up in a desert environment, that's different than like which is the one that best represents Flagstaff. Because one of the things that we've been learning, and I think this is fairly common knowledge, so I'm not sharing, but is that because of historical bias, there is inherently bias in AI and what it would think are the cultural norms of Flagstaff, right? So in some places, it does feel like it would be very useful. And in others, you'd be sliding back into the trap that made HR using AI a danger because what are the candidates that it looks at from the past that have been successful? They're mostly from certain groups, if you're talking about the stock exchanges, right? But one of the pieces I thought was also fascinating is from an economic development perspective, one of the careers that is starting to build is prompt writing for AI. And if you think about the creativity that goes into getting your prompt exactly right to get your thing, then where does, I mean, there are certain art forms where, you're taking other people's things and synthesizing into something new. And if writing a prompt, you guys have already kind of talked about this, but it is fascinating to think about when you're looking at it from that economic development, like that is work that people are getting paid for, is the creation of prompts that will generate a certain.
Yeah, and I thank you for bringing up the inherent bias, because I know that was in, was Corey's, original presentation, and I know it didn't get talked a lot about at the first conversation that you guys had in December. But yeah, so when you do put those prompts in, and it's gonna have, just the bias of the material that went in. Just as people do too, but, I actually had not thought of AI being used by selection.
I saw them like, since we're talking about another selection panel,
Yes.
not saying I'll use it on that, but like, it's
Right.
what you absolutely could. And it would
Mhm.
definitely, like, it would shape your,
It would shape the
your
outcome.
opinion, even if you said, I'm not gonna use that, I was just curious. It'll shape your opinion.
Yeah, I don't think most softwares are quite, just based on some of my recent technical review, like some of it can be as a helpful tool and it has to link it, but an example, someone in my company, because they're people are creating their own GPTs to kind of load in, and so they created his own for landscape architecture, and we had some of our company's technical guidelines, a landscape architectural standards book that's kind of an industry standard, and ADA guidelines, and he asked it to describe how to build a seawall. And the first thing it said was the appropriate height was 16 to 18 inches. But by the federal ADA guidelines, it's actually 17 to 19, but it just pulled out the 16 to 18 from another document and highlighted it. That sounds like a small deal, but that 1 inch of difference could actually hold up like certificate of occupancy if it's built too low,
Right.
and be very costly. So I still find that it's missing details,
Oh, yeah.
for sure. And I know everyone's kind of expecting that, but I think that's just the importance of it being kind of our guidelines for our committee, how you use it, but making sure you're really familiar with it, because it could pull out facts from someone's proposal that aren't quite right.
Don't trust and verify.
Yeah.
Just going back to the comment that Dave made about bias, and also sort of the creation of things based on that bias. I was mentioning some posts. There's a gallery show in Los Angeles right now called Monuments, and it's a consideration of public art, and it's based on a census of public art. It's not just emotions and feelings, but one of the key points of the census is that there are exponentially more monuments to Confederate soldiers than there are to like Ulysses S. Grant, exponentially more in the United States. And people's perceptions are that those are historical monuments that were erected sort of in context with the Civil War, but they were really mostly erected much, much later. And so there's this perception that they're a part of one part of history, but they're a part of a different part of history. And without digging into the history itself in this commentary, it's that bias that's being pulled into AI. So AI says, well, this person is more important than that person because there are so many more statues of this person. And so that stuff is in there, and it is something, again, don't trust and verify. But still interesting and awesome tool and really useful in a lot of ways. So that was I can't recommend that show enough in terms of going and maybe reconsidering some of your own perceptions about public art here when we talk about things that are considered historical, or oh, this represents Flagstaff, or oh, this is a thing that reflects Flagstaff history, and then really thinking like, does it really reflect Flagstaff history, or does it reflect the history that's produced by a specific biased specific group? So I definitely took a lot away from it. It's up till May 3rd according to.
Okay. And we also have another comment from Commissioner Travelby.
Yes.
We also have to be careful about using it to select or rank applicants. There's always a possibility it can hallucinate if it cannot find the answer or doesn't understand. I love using that word, hallucination. It's fun, but it's okay.
ChatGPT also just gave me the number of monuments to our racist past versus number of monuments that celebrate our communities of color. I can also share that for the. It's a table.
Yeah, the census actually is available online, so if anybody's curious. It is extremely interesting.
Okay, so I didn't get a volunteer in this meeting,
You
but,
actually, we hadn't finished that
okay,
conversation.
okay, all right.
I would like to know more about what the commitments are, but I'm working pretty intently on the AI policy for our company
Mhm.
with our folks there, so it's not something that I've not been thinking about a lot. So, let me know.
All right, thank you. And anybody else? There might be room for one more.
I'd be interested, I'm also on the committee and I mean about it, but yeah, I need to make sure I could fulfill.
Right.
I need to make sure I can do the
It's
job.
not formed, staff, we haven't totally, this was just a conclusion I came to that it would be a good idea, so I'm gonna confer with staff, this, I think it might be a quarterly kind of thing. I gotta recruit more people. So.
Yeah, it's something that I would also be interested in depending on the timing.
Okay,
I think it would be great to have someone from NAU on the committee, especially if you're involved in any
we
conversation.
can't obviously have a quorum.
No,
So we can't have four.
no, but I mean, if we're prioritizing committee members, I think having some input from the NAU policies is valuable. So. And also, whatever the
Just
forest.
toss in like a two-part question that might help us think about AI. Would be, what do we value and what do we want to celebrate in artwork, just in general?
Right.
And then pairing that with what can a human do that a robot can't do, that a machine can't, what can a machine do that a human can't do? And if you kind of start to think about things that way, that might kind of guide where we want artistic efforts to ultimately end up in our programs.
I think those are really good starting points. Because it is ultimately that's what does this commission subjectively want for its program? And for the art that it's putting out in the community. And as, promoting local artists is just one aspect. It's not the only aspect. And sometimes our different aspects compete with each other.
It might be fun to
and
have.
it could just be the highest and best art, whatever that means, regardless.
For a certain cabinet, it might be fun to have an AI generated, like issue the RFP and say, for this cabinet, we want, your AI generated art, and then just have it. And that way, I don't know, I mean, that might be a way to embrace, as long as it's not a Google image, but that might be a way to.
That's an interesting thing because they did have an exhibition in Marfa, Texas. That was very much like that. It was like an exhibition of
AI art.
Of AI art.
Yeah.
And there's also the possibility that that will be another traffic cabinet that would get vandalized.
Wouldn't it be awesome if somebody cheated and only did original art for that?
Ironic.
The imaginations in this room are really great.
I love it. Cool. Are we good on this? Anything else that staff needs from the commission?
No.
All right, well then, this meeting is a short meeting. So are there, item J, are there any requests for future agenda items?
I have something that your email recently had like just an amazing list of opportunities that we're starting the year with the RFQs and solicitations. And I was wondering if it would be too much to add just a short summary of that to our meetings, the open solicitations that are.
That's a good idea.
I just think it'd be kind of nice for us to make sure we kind of know the timelines as we're talking to people and.
Okay.
I will provide a second request for that. Okay. If that's required.
Well, I don't know if that's a meeting agenda item or just an announcement.
Yeah, I was gonna
I think
say.
it's-
Oh, yeah, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, it could be an announcement, yes, it could be a regular announcement.
And then, item K, timing of the upcoming meeting. BPAC is on Monday, February 9th, 2026 at 4 p.m.
Which happens to be somebody's 50th birthday in this room. He won't be there.
I'm sorry, I was missing it.
Item L, we are adjourned.
I love the dates